many Priyali.
So let me introduce to the next topic and the next speaker. That's Priyali. Priyali Kama. As I said, she is a vice president for Skin and Personal Care.
Okay, I'm going to come on up.
Yeah.
Am I loud enough? Yeah? Okay. Usually being loud is not an issue with me. So if you can't hear me at any point, just say so. I'm Priyali. As you can tell, I guess from the way I look in my accent, I'm Indian. And I've been at PNG for a very long time. But before I get into more about me, I just wanted to say how delighted I am to be here. You know, so when Donna and Steve were organizing this, they actually reached out and said, would any of you guys like to speak with the upcoming group of women entrepreneurs that we're working with? And I was like, absolutely. Okay, so I think it's an honor and a privilege to be with you. You've got amazing stories. I'm sure in the break, I hope I can hear some of them. I think the bravery that you demonstrate by venturing out into the big bad world of startups is just incredible. I'm a startup wife, by the way, so my husband runs a startup. So I've seen the journey from very close quarters, and it's a roller coaster ride. And I think at times, you need a different metal, a different makeup to be able to do it. I don't think I would. So I'm very glad he does, because he's the cool one in the family. so without further ado, tell you more about me. I mean, I usually do this. I have two boys. So the two boys, actually, one is my husband, but sometimes I feel there's a gender identity, there is role identity crisis, because I feel like I have two boys. And the other is our 11-year-old son. So growing up, I came from a very large family, but not my nuclear family was pretty small. I just had a sister, but both my parents had a lot of siblings, and I had a ton of cousins, all girls. Okay, so I grew up in a world of all girls, and suddenly I had a boy. So it's been quite a revelation and a fun one, actually. So, it's interesting to see that all the things that I imagined I would have as a mother for my kids, like the dolls and all of that stuff, none of it worked. I even tried to be like a progressive, mother with encouraging non-gender stereotypes. So when my son was 2, like I'm sure many of you kids will relate to this, he got a ton of birthday presents. All of them were train sets. And I think he had about 5 Thomas Edison train sets. Anyone with boys here who've had birthday parties that got Thomas train, so you know what I'm saying, right? So I thought, oh my gosh, let me be a progressive mom, and I tried to exchange one of them, and I got him a kitchen, sort of like kitchenette with these little burners and pots and pans, and I said, why don't you play with this? I leave it in the room, and I leave him there. I step out, I come back a few minutes later, and he's lined up all the spoons and forks and everything in lines. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm making a tray. Okay. So much for that. Anyway, so lots of action. Many people don't know this about me, and in PNG, we come across as being fairly staid. So vice presidents who are closet video gamers is not usual, but I am. It's an addiction, as my husband says, he loses me to various things, but my son says these are not real video games. So he's heavily into Fortnite. By the way, he thinks these are super boring and old. But I used to play Tetris like a fiend. Okay, and now I'm into wordscapes, and sometimes I'm playing wordscapes even when I shouldn't be. At a traffic light, which is terrible, and I should not be. Okay, so that's basically my video game fix, and somehow this is.
So you're pointed there.
Where? Okay.
Yeah.
Am I pressing the wrong thing? Oh, it got switched off. Yeah. So I actually lived, I tell people I have itchy feet, because growing up I lived in many different places, grew up across 3 continents, started school in the US, in Boston actually, finished in Paris in France, and in the middle was between Bombay and Delhi in India. So I've lived and worked in several different places. I need to update that because I've gone to definitely way more than 50 countries. And one of the perks of my job at PhD is I travel a lot. Well, it's a perk most of the time when it's a new country, but when you're repeat traveling, sometimes you miss being at home. But anyway, so I love traveling. And I heard someone say, I just walked in when you were saying Kyoto. Mala, yeah, so Kyoto, big fan as well. In fact, that picture is from Japan, from Vancouver, which is there a month ago for skiing. So Japan is definitely one of the places I love visiting. And last but not least, this I say to my son actually to encourage him to read, but I do believe it, I'm an avid reader. And I always tell them that people who read books lead many lives, whereas people who don't just lead the one. And so really reading is about opening your mind. I believe that. I enjoy reading. It's the thing I do when I'm not on my video game fix. I try to read as much as I can, and I really, really love it. Usually fiction. I'm not very into intense management philosophy. And with that, I'm actually going to segue into what I'm talking to you about. So today we're going to talk about how do you build a business. And I'm going to tell you my point of view on it. It's an unconventional point of view because it's not the usual things about setting up a mission, standards, policies, operational stuff. It's actually what I think it takes to build a business. And as I said, my only credential is I see it very close quarters in a marriage with my husband trying to do it. And I also see it, honestly, in a bigger scale at P&G, where in the work that we do, in the work of brand building, we really are building businesses. Albeit from a slightly different perspective, because we're not entrepreneurs necessarily, but we still have these little babies called brands that we have to grow. And after about, by the way, I've been in P&G 19 years. After about 19 years of doing this, as I still step back and say, what am I actually doing? And the way I see it, what I think on this slide, is it's about storytelling. So really, I think it was up front, let me just go there. The reason I call this session Building Businesses Through Storytelling. And the way I see it is that really people don't buy what you do. Okay, they don't buy how you do it, they really buy why you do it or the story. And so this is P&G's.
Repeating Mr. Priyali. Here's what I do.
Should I just?
No, that's
click?
click. I will click.
Are you sure?
Oh, there's something else. Can you try once again?
Okay. So this is P&G, something that we call a brand building framework. Has anyone seen anything like this? Okay, so you're super familiar with this, right? So P&G for years has used these three concentric circles, the who, the what, and the how. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what they are. I think they're a big part of building a business, building a brand. But the thing that was added more recently, actually about, I would call it less than 10 years ago, was really the why. And in my view, the why is really the most important thing. As people who build businesses, the people who own and curate brands, the why is the most important thing, or the story that you need to own. Okay, and so to give you a bit of a break from me talking too much, as I said, people don't buy what you do, but they buy why you do it, and that is your story. And I want you to watch this video. It's a bit of a long video, so bear with me. It's a TED Talk by a guy called Simon Sinek. Have you ever heard of him? Yes. Okay, so if you've seen the TED Talk, here's your time to take a bathroom break. But if you haven't, this is worth the 20 minutes.
How do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight? The Wright brothers beat them to it. There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery. And this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operate in it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way. and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%.
Sorry.
The PowerPoint just needs to be projected. It's on your screen. While we're waiting, who's from Gifts Less Ordinary? I'm a big fan. It's you. I love your stuff.
So when is reference? Need this reference to stop.
Yeah, it's a YouTube video, so you just put it up on YouTube. Okay, it's back onto there. That's fine.
Take off.
Yeah, it's back. Apologies for the glitch, we just played directly from YouTube. Probably took heavier video.
Change the way in which I operate in it. Only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only though innovative. Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight? The Wright brothers beat them to it. There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery. And this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operated it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products. And nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology, biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain, looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into three major components that correlate perfectly with the golden circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level? The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle two sections make up our limbic brains, and our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and the figures and you say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision making and not language.
Okay, I'm going to stop it here. Has anybody seen this text before? I saw a couple of hands there. So I wanted to have a little bit of a discussion with you guys on this because as we go through this session, it's not really just me downloading my thoughts for you to react to, but it's really a conversation. There's a reason I put this video up there. I'm going to throw it out there. I'd love to hear what you think. I do believe that the bulk, and this is something that P&G has been learning and refining over the last 10 to 15 years, is that the way in which we used to sell our products in the 60s and 70s, and it did get P&G to decide to this into a lot of glory, has fundamentally been challenged. So the way we used to sell our products was very functional. It was, I have a Tide detergent which removes stains better than detergent X. I work on Always a Whisper, that was my first brand, sanitary protection, and we absorb better than competition. I work on Oral-B and we clean teeth better than Colgate, right? So that was the way we were doing it. And over the years, we found that we hit point of diminishing returns. So saying that I clean your teeth better, I remove stains better, I absorb better, I smell better, just wasn't cutting it anymore. And the reason for that was, I think, embedded a lot in what Simon Sinek talks about, which is as our world has evolved, as categories, in which frankly P&G competes, and I would argue, and I don't know all your businesses very well, but a vast majority of our businesses compete. It's getting more and more competitive, more cluttered, and frankly more commoditized. Okay, so people no longer sit there and say functional superiority alone is sufficient for me to choose your product, choose your service, choose your brand over any other. It's a much more subconscious, and as Simon Sinek said, he called it, I think, the inner cortex of the brain, some of us call it right brain, but it's a much more emotional, irrational decision-making process. What people are responding to is really a kinship of value. Okay, so if I believe that you stand for something that I feel strongly about, you're a soap, but you're an environmentally conscious soap. Okay, many millennials signed up for that. I want to be associated with brands that reflect my personal values and my choices, which is environmentally conscious. You may be, and many of you would have this advantage, you may be a small startup organization. In a way, kind of like he didn't say it for Apple, but sticking it to the man, right, the big guy. And I relate to that. I'm for the small guy. So here I am voting for you with my dollars and my feet. And that's really the expression of value or the story that will win consumers for the long run. Okay, and that's really what Simon Sinek says, and that is really what I believe is the art of storytelling to build a brand or a business. I'm going to pause there and just get reactions from the room. Does anyone disagree with this violently? Stop there.
I agree. I work in brand strategy, so all my work for 20 years to be around this, but I think it's important because I realise you start your own business, you've got a very clear purpose around why you've done that. You're either trying to, you're trying to do something differently, you're trying to change the marketplace or deliver goods to that is really fortunate because not every business is doing it. They feel like it wants to tell some story, it's the right thing, and I think it's sort of into a little bit. It needs to be maybe, as you say, if it's authentic, it gets through the customer. If it doesn't, it just feels like everyone's doing it and it wants to.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to react to that because I think you're absolutely right. So I'll come to you in just a second. But I think you're absolutely right. And I also agree with Charlotte that the challenge is much bigger for big established brands like P&G. The reason I felt so good about bringing this idea to you guys is because I think it's much easier for you, as you said, right? Many of you started businesses because you were upset with the way product or service that you were receiving. Like I have a friend who makes homemade jams. Why? Because she feels that the jam that she gets in the supermarket is full of preservative, which she does not think is obviously good for her health, for the family, etc. So there is a genuine story there. Now to your point, is the space getting crowded? Absolutely. You know, and as P&G, we're trying to do this as well. And I believe in many of the cases, our attempts are genuine. We don't necessarily land the message as genuinely. So what I had the privilege of actually attending the advertising festival in Cannes last year. And you know, everybody was on the bandwagon of cause-related marketing, storytelling. But it's hard because the space is so crowded that practically every brand stands for one of three causes. Diversity, so female equality was a big one. And of course with the whole Me Too movement, etc., that came up. The other was the environment, and the third was not gender diversity, but LGBTQ issues, and equality for, basically for pride, rainbow, that kind of thing. So these were the three areas. And every brand, from McDonald's, okay, all the way to you know, Dawn, our own dishwashing detergent, had something to say about female equality, environmental concern, or gay issues, right? And I think that it does become difficult to be differentiated and to be authentic, to your point, unless you really, really walk the talk. And where I think I'd turn it back to you guys is if you have a story which is really genuine and born out of it, stay with it. And stay consistent with it for a long period of time. Because even if it sounds tiresome to you to have to repeat it over and over, believe me, there are people like me who aren't in the world of, you know, of entrepreneurship, but who would gravitate towards products like yours, solutions like yours, because I like your story. And not because I necessarily think your product, I may think that too, but it's not, I don't come to it first because the product is better. So stay with it is what I would say. Sorry, you wanted to react.
Actually, I wanted to share. So first, for me, all the cleaning materials that I buy to my home, I buy from a lady in Singapore that is manufacturing to like entrepreneur like us, and everything is, you know, good quality and natural and no chemicals. So I want to have for my family things that are natural, and I would prefer to buy from her because I want to help other women, you know, that is trying to have her own business. So this is one thing. And the other thing I wanted to share was very strongly. 2 weeks back, I went to a networking event. It was the American Association or something. Anyway, so the person that was speaking there was the economist of DBS. And he knew me, he saw me last year. And when he finished, I came and I shook his hand, and nice meeting you again. And then he wanted to introduce me and my colleague to somebody else over there. And I started to say that we do innovative gift solutions, and I started to tell about us, and then he said, 1 second, the most unique thing about you. And I was looking at him and said, because my company is a platform for parents that are looking to balance between having a career and being a present. Usually it's mother, because all the employees are mothers. And he said, this is what makes you unique. And actually we are now being recognized as a social organization as well. So he remembered my story last year only because of this.
Wow.
Because he said this is something that's unique. So I do believe that if, as you said, if you're authentic and I opened the business especially because of this, I shared with you that my background, I have master in system engineering, and I was working in engineering consulting firm, but I couldn't find the balance. I wanted to be a mother and I wanted to have a career. And this is why this company is so important for me, because I want to have more and more women that are looking for this balance. And I think when people see it and understand it, they connect to our story, and this is why it's easier, or sometimes much easier for us to get new clients, or when they connect to our value. Exactly what he says. I sometimes see in meetings, especially if it's men, maybe they don't have kids, and he doesn't connect to our story, and then you see the meeting is different. And when people connect to our values, I always share the values, why we do what we do, you see the connection.
But thanks for playing that game. It's always great to hear him play. I mean, I'm such a big fan. I've read all his books. I think it's such a powerful concept. The thing I want to add, of course, I'm a big believer. I've come through this why process, all of that. But I think the challenge comes when it's not the founder, or you make a team to buy into the why as well, which I think is very critical because you can't be everywhere all the time, right? So I also have run these why discovery workshops for companies, and it's amazing to see why people join a company also, right? They have their own whys as to why they are there, and then how they actually connect with why they are there to the why of the company, which is slightly different, but still there is a connection. Most of the time it's the values, but when employees can also connect to that, it's like next level powerful, because then they're talking exactly like you, right? And then it's just magnifying the whole impact of the why. So I think that's also very powerful in terms of empowering the employees with the why.
And can I ask, do you do anything special when you recruit people to figure out whether they really believe in the why?
So this is my second entrepreneurial journey. So right now it's really small, it's just me. But in the previous organization, I was not enlightened with this concept. But I think subconsciously we used to really find the value alignment when we used to recruit.
Okay.
In terms of course, the ones that were important to us, which was partnerships and integrity and things like that. So we used to recruit then, but if I was to do it again, I might do it slightly differently. Really asking questions in terms of the why process a little bit more consciously.
Well, I just wanted to say that, I don't sell goods, I don't sell products. So honest, I provide services. So, and I do legal services, IP. It's very difficult to tell a story. When I first started my business, it's because my husband had an existing business in the US, so we wanted to move back here. I set up an office here. So it was not like I'm trying to solve a problem as much like, for example, your friend with the jam situation, right? I don't have that. It's just it's another IP firm like most people have one. So I am trying to be different and try to tell a story when I try to connect with people. Okay, as in I try to because I receive myself a lot of emails from a lot of firms that say we're very good, we've been around for 100 years, we can solve all your problems. And I take like 2 seconds and I don't bother reading it anymore. And I'm trying to depart from that when I'm trying to connect with someone else, right? So if I do that, they probably do the same with my emails. So I really try to be creative in my subject line, in my intro, and really just be myself. So in that sense, I think it's a bit of difference when you're selling goods and when you're a service provider and when you're in an industry like a legal service or an accountant firm, because I think, even for my website, I can't be so creative. People they expect certain types of websites for lawyers. You can't be always creative, stuff. So there's some limitations for service provider. That's my view. So I agree about the why, but it's just for me, it's harder to find the why. Because frankly, being a lawyer, you want to help people solve problems. They have legal problems, you want to help them. How do you make that very creative? It's not as easy. You don't say I set up a law firm because I feel like I wanted to change the law and become a legislator. It's very difficult.
I'm helping a law firm create a brand at the minute, and they're just very targeted. They're only looking after this section of business. So it's maybe not necessarily exactly why they do it, but by being targeted, that's kind of their why.
Yeah, see, similar to me, I started going to startups, so I've avoided all the big corporations.
Yeah.
Sorry to say P&G, because they don't look at the small firms like like me, they don't even, I try to get some recognition, they don't even, I'm like out of line. Sorry, but that's how it is. Well, small firms like us, we are in huge competition with the big firms, and they don't even listen even if you have a genuine story. Too bad, you know? So, yeah, so should I pass the mic to her?
Yes, I think that people want to react to you, so why don't we get that and then we'll go to that. I just want to get a reaction.
The reaction of two people who want to.
I think a story doesn't always have to be a personal story. And I used to work in services as well, in design consulting. And I think this is a general comment about your comment as well, about how people get fatigued about the cause. And I think that's definitely true. And I agree that staying with it and outlasting everyone else is one strategy. But I think it's also very important for us to think about what story it is, because we have many whys. And I don't think that each of us, either of us is that simple to just be able to boil it down to one thing. I think Simon Sinek did a very good job with Apple, but that's just a very distilled boiling down of what that company is. So I feel that when we think about stories, sometimes it doesn't have to be a personal story of why you started something, because not everyone can relate sometimes. I think the story has to be about you and them, because that's when that kinship of values really come in. And if it includes them, then I think it's a much more powerful story.
It's an excellent point, Stephanie. And I'm going to come back to this because I think you've hit on a couple of things, which is what is your story? And taking the time to figure that out. And if there's one thing I would love to leave you with over here today is, if you don't think you have a story, or you don't think that you know what that one aspect of your business is that makes you uniquely different, I would strongly recommend that you take the time to actually put that down. Okay, so that's the first one. And yes, sorry,
Can I just say
yes,
one
please.
reaction? Well, you did say why you say you want to help.
I do that.
And it's so true that if you go to a lot of the other law firms, it never says they want to help people. It says that they are this type of law and that type of law.
Yeah.
I do that. And what's the reason? And you also mentioned the reason why you started law. You want to help people. So I think you got it. It's just a matter of just saying it out and to me that.
I feel that there is that. I do share exactly what you say. It's just that I still feel you have an advantage for those of you who are selling products. You have an advantage over the service. That's my personal view. I think that unique type of jam or gives that sort of narrative. I mean, really, I think there's probably a better story than what I can
As a lawyer. You can be the only way for 15 years in large multinational law firms. The only way you get from keep business, which is what we're talking about, is growing your business, is actually being a good listener, understanding their problems, and executing well. That's your.
I wrote it down. I wrote it.
Yeah.
Purpose, solve problems, creativity, connectivity. I wrote it down exactly.
The thing with lawyers is that, specific to lawyers, is that you go to law firm, you go to the next firm next door, everybody's trained, right? Everybody's qualified. By and large, everybody is a good lawyer or an average lawyer or a good lawyer. And so it's really about that personal connection.
I agree.
If I connect with you, then that's what makes you different to the next law firm next door. That's it.
I do agree with that. That is exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because it's about listening. It's about, to me, if you're an IT lawyer, you can file 3 months. It's not a big deal. It's not difficult to do. But what sets you apart from the next IT lawyer is beyond just filing. It's beyond just, it's more than that. And that's a message that's not always easy to engage someone. It's very difficult. That's my view. It's very, very difficult.
No, Kiran, I agree with you. I think that the biggest thing that you said today is it's not easy. And, I think Stephanie made amazing points over here about everyone has a lot of whys. And figuring out what is that one that you define that is unique to yourself, is genuine, and that you stay consistent with over a period of time. In my experience has been what wins. I'll also tell you, I actually don't agree with the point on service. So, any of you guys are massage fans in Singapore? Okay, so I'm a big one. Okay, so I go to this Great World City massage parlor on the 2nd floor, where they have blind people giving you foot massages. I only go there because I believe that it's such an amazing thing to do. Okay, it's not the best foot massage, I'll be honest. Okay. Yeah. It's good enough. I mean, I'm not going to kill my feet on the altar of service. But the point is that I love the fact that there are blind people massaging me. And, many people, they even tell the story about how they're actually better because when one sense is dimmed, the others are heightened. I don't feel it honestly in the service, but I love the fact that they're giving it a genuine go. And so I'm very loyal. Okay, I go there. And so I do think that even services can have a purpose. And this one is a very obvious one. You're helping people from a lower advantage status. But I think to the point that Charlotte was making earlier, it doesn't even have to be that. It just has to be a unique story that makes you different, interesting, and relevant to the target audience that you have. And I think we've held you back from speaking for way too long, so please go ahead.
No worries. So for us, we're from content.co. So I mean, our whole business is powered by content marketing. So I thought I would just share what we've learned over the years. So we started about slightly over 3 years ago. Powered thousands of projects from many different brands globally. And I think at the very beginning of when we started our company, brands would come to us and say, hey, we want to commission content, and we, let's say it's a list to go of like 5 things, right? At least one thing would be about your brand, right? But 3 years later, we are now seeing a lot of companies when if the product that's given to them is too salesy, they'll say, hey, we can't have all these hard sell. Let's focus on the engagement, let's focus on the storytelling first. So you can really see that even for large companies, even management is understanding that start with the why and not how, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like this shift that I'm observing.
Any other?
Sorry, can I share one last thing about the why? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't really know. Just to share about the why and the indirect effect that we had in our agency is that, so we started the agency because we believe that also social enterprises and charities should have the right to good branding and good marketing consulting. So, and on our website, we also have values like jobs should be fun, we should be working in a caring and secure and safe environment. So we have all of these values and everything. And if you go to our website, it doesn't really say anything about the clients that we've been handling. Actually added the logos in the end. But it's all about showing the atmosphere at work. And previously I was with another agency and we were only about doing really cool designs for really top luxury brands. In my previous agency I had a big issue finding talents. It was impossible to recruit talented people. In my new agency, we get people just sending us CVs and talented people, and I'm saying not just people that are like randomly looking for a job and they can do anything. No, we really get talented people that are interested in working for a company because we are doing what we're doing. So we get that indirect sort of loop that we didn't even plan for, it just sort of happened, and we get all these talents that are sort of connecting with our why. So it's the recruitment process is a lot easier.
That's an incredible story.
I would like to add to you. From my, you can hear me from here. From my perspective, it's your mindset, because many times I thought to myself it would be much easier if I had a service, because if you sell something that is tangible, you always have competition. Always have competition. But if you do something that you do, nobody can copy you because it's you. You're different, you're unique. And if you do it because you care, because you want to help, if I was you, this is the only thing I would write on my website, because I care. Actually, this is because you're small, it gives you actually, let's say if I needed those services, I wouldn't go to one of the big companies that will be such a small, something that they don't really get. But I would choose somebody like you because I'm important to you, because you would like to help me, and this is the connection. So I think that actually, if you twist your point of view, you see that actually you have an advantage and not disadvantage.
Okay, so that was a great animated conversation. Actually, that was the biggest thing I didn't want to leave you with today, but I am going to take you through a couple more of the points on how we close loop with PNUs on this brand building circle. So once you're clear on your why and your story, I think to the point that Charlotte was making earlier, in P&G, we do believe that in order for your brand to be successful, and therefore by extension your businesses to be successful, you have to be super clear on who your target audience is. And the art and science of defining your target audience has evolved immensely over the years. Okay, and P&G's gone through several of them. We've done tons and tons of way of consumer segmentation. And for each of your businesses, I'm sure you have an idea, at least in your head, if not to a great degree of scientific knowledge about it. You have an idea of who the target audience is for your service or your product. But I just wanted to tell you one truth about the way in which we have evolved our thinking. So in the beginning, when P&G started on this journey, the easiest, can anyone guess what was the easiest way to segment your marketplace and say, this is my audience?
Age.
Yeah, demographics, right? So age, affordability, gender, that kind of stuff. So demographic targeting took us to where we were in the 60s and 70s, and we found that that was actually helpful. Okay, but again, as the world got more complicated, and you now have not just 3 brands of detergent fighting for space in your laundry room, but you probably have 20. That wasn't enough, because we were finding that the broad demographic targeting that we were doing was getting chipped away, and what we thought people would react to simply because they were of a certain age or race or gender or economic level was not always predicted. So then we moved to the next phase of targeting, which was something called psychographic targeting. Any of you guys have done that? So yeah, so it was basically about attitudes, right? So if people have a certain attitude, so I may be, a 15-year-old college girl, but I like wearing expensive makeup that typically only 50-year-old women can afford once they reach the peak of their, their corporate career. They manage to, somebody indulges them with that kind of thing. And we would find that that was perhaps a better way of certainly designing our products, because we were unshackling the misconceptions that people buy you based on a certain age, gender, racial, or demographic, physical stereotype. So it went more into what is your attitude regardless of who you are. And what that really helped us do was design our product better, because when you understand the psychographic of your target consumer, from the way you design your product to your communication to even your packaging, for some of you who mentioned you were in design, it sharpens it dramatically. But where we found that this failed, any guesses where did this approach fail? It wasn't executable, right? I mean, if I can design beautifully, but then how do I get my message out to the intended consumer? Because there was nothing that allowed me to basically pull them together into a targetable audience. Psychographic targeting will tell you the type of person she is, or he is, but in the case of P&G, it's mostly female consumers, but they won't tell you how to reach them, okay? Because that's easier done. You can buy TV advertising, for example, or in the case of many of us today, Facebook social posts based on a demographic profile, much less so versus psychographic. So finally, we evolved to the third phase, which is where we are today. And this is based on a very simple human truth, and actually something that we have been using in the way we recruit people into P&G for years, which is the best predictor of how a person will behave is what they have actually done, behavioral targeting. Okay, so irrespective of what people say they will do, irrespective of their age, ethnicity, gender, what they describe as likes, etc., the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So actually looking at behavioral targeting, who are the people who actually buy laundry detergents? Who are the people who actually would buy unique gifts on Gifts Less Ordinary? Who are the people who are looking for a service from a lawyer who really cares? Or ceramics from a bespoke, ceramic firm. Those are the people who are more likely to respond to your messages. And so we moved to behavioral segmentation. And I'm going to just show you 2 examples from P&G, which I hope are just one slide back, please, which I hope are useful, of 2 of our brands. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with Pampers, would that be fair to say? Yeah? So Pampers is our premium and our biggest baby care product. Some of you may know we also have a second one called Loves. Okay, and I'm just going to play the 2 pieces of advertising and see if you can figure out or fathom from that the difference in the target audience that we have defined for these 2 and how it manifests in the way we actually speak to them. One up, please. I need to just press click on it. This is the wrong one. The previous. Yes, yeah, these are red.
love at first touch. And all you wanted to do was surround them in comfort and protection. That's why only Pampers Swaddlers is the #1 choice of hospitals. To wrap your baby in blanket-like softness and premium protection. So that all they feel is love. Wishing you love, sleep, and play. Pampers.
Take this back.
First kid. You ready? By their second kid, every mom is an expert and more likely to choose Loves than first-time moms. New Loves with Nightlock Plus absorbs wetness faster than Huggies Snug and Dry to help stop leaks, even overnight.